A sudden accident transformed her father-in-law, a virile widower full of life, into a vulnerable man dependent on her care. From the accidental touches as she helped him sit up, to the burning gazes that seemed to scorch the night. She was terrified to realize that the man making her heart race was not her husband, but his own father. Would she have the strength to stop, or would she let herself slide helplessly into this abyss of forbidden sin? Uncle Tan, a man whose hands bore the indelible marks of decades spent in the shipyard, his face a complex roadmap of life's arduous journey, meticulously stacked large delivery crates in the common service yard. At 62, his frame still possessed the unyielding resilience of a gnarled rain tree, though a telltale creak often accompanied the bending of his knees. His son, Jason, 35, had departed weeks prior for Tuas, embroiled in the relentless construction of a towering new urban development. The city's vast opportunities were a siren call Jason could ill afford to resist. Back in their HDB flat, Uncle Tan remained under the watchful care of his daughter-in-law, Mei Ling, a spirited 28-year-old whose vivacious eyes and radiant smile had the power to illuminate even the most shadowed corner of their home. Mei Ling was in the kitchen, meticulously preparing a fragrant chicken curry that permeated the entire flat with its warm, comforting aroma. She hummed a nostalgic Mandopop ballad, her voice a soft melody, as she finely sliced shallots, her apron lightly dusted with flour. Suddenly, a wrenching cry tore through the midday stillness. It was no ordinary sound. It was the raw, guttural shriek of a soul confronting its world's sudden collapse. Mei Ling, quickly for goodness sake! Uncle Tan's voice, broken and desperate, echoed from the service yard. Mei Ling dropped her knife with a clatter and sprinted towards the rear door, her heart hammering against her ribs. Emerging into the sun-drenched space, her gaze fell upon him. Uncle Tan lay sprawled on the ground, one leg twisted at an unnatural angle beneath his body, his face ashen and contorted with an agony that stole her breath. The towering stack of crates had toppled beside him, a thick wooden pallet lying nearby, a silent, grim witness to the disaster. Uncle Tan, what happened? Don't move! Mei Ling cried, kneeling swiftly beside him. Her hands trembled uncontrollably as she tried to assess the dreadful situation. I don't know. The crates just came down and Oh, my leg. Uncle Tan groaned, gritting his teeth. Beads of sweat glistened on his forehead, and his eyes, a tumultuous blend of pain and profound embarrassment, sought hers. I didn't want to trouble you, child. Don't be ridiculous. I'm going to get help, she retorted, already rising. But Uncle Tan seized her arm with surprising strength. No, wait. Don't call anyone just yet. Just help me inside. I don't want the whole block gossiping. Mei Ling's brows furrowed with concern, yet she nodded. With painstaking care, she helped him to his feet, allowing him to lean heavily upon her. Uncle Tan's weight was substantial, and each agonizing step was a monumental struggle. But Mei Ling uttered no complaint, guiding him gently to the master bedroom's bed, where he collapsed with a pained moan. I'm going for Dr. Lim, Uncle Tan. This doesn't look good. The diagnosis was unequivocal, a fractured tibia. Uncle Tan would be confined to bed for weeks, perhaps even months. That night, Mei Ling sat by Uncle Tan's bedside, the soft glow of a bedside lamp illuminating the quiet room. He lay pale, eyes closed, but sleep eluded him. The silence between them hung heavy, laden with a new, overwhelming reality. Mei Ling, you don't have to do this, Uncle Tan murmured, breaking the oppressive quiet. You're young. You have your own life. You shouldn't be looking after an old man like me. She offered a soft smile, though her eyes shimmered with a profound mixture of weariness and tenderness. Your family, Uncle Tan. What am I supposed to do? Leave you here alone? Jason would be furious. Jason, Uncle Tan sighed, gazing at the ceiling. That boy works too hard. He shouldn't be so far away. You know him. He's always been like that. Stubborn as his father. Mei Ling teased gently, adjusting his blanket. Her fingers brushed his hand, and he looked at her for an instant longer than strictly necessary. There was something in his eyes, a spark of profound gratitude, but also something deeper, something neither of them dared to name. The ensuing days became a whirlwind of devoted activity for Mei Ling. She rose at dawn to prepare warm congee and a strong kopio, then meticulously washed laundry and tended to Uncle Tan's needs. She brought him hot soup, carefully changed his bandages, and ensured he took the medicines prescribed by Dr. Lim. Each time she entered the room, Uncle Tan's gaze followed her intently, as if he feared she might vanish. One afternoon, as Mei Ling helped him to a sitting position for his meal, their hands met again. This time, he did not withdraw his. His fingers, rough and calloused from years of manual labor, closed gently over hers, which were warm and delicate. Mei Ling, I don't know how to thank you. His voice was low, almost a whisper. I don't know what I would have done without you. She blushed, averting her gaze. No need to say anything, Uncle Tan. It's what family does, isn't it? But deep within, Mei Ling felt something entirely different. A warmth bloomed in her chest that she couldn't quite explain, a blend of pride in caring for him, and something more. Something that made her feel a confusing guilt. Uncle Tan, for his part, found himself unable to ignore Mei Ling's unassuming beauty. Bathed in the soft glow of the late afternoon sun, her rich chestnut hair fell in loose strands over her shoulders. It was a simple, yet powerful allure. He mentally chastised himself for even harboring such thoughts. One evening, as Mei Ling read aloud from a worn book of Chinese proverbs she had discovered in the flat, Uncle Tan interrupted her. You're too kind, child. Far too kind for this often harsh world. That night, sleep eluded Mei Ling. She lay staring at her bedroom ceiling, replaying Uncle Tan's words, the searching intensity in his eyes, the fleeting touch of their hands. It was a profoundly unsettling sensation, as if something forbidden was stirring within her. She tossed and turned, attempting to banish these thoughts. It's just exhaustion, she told herself. I'm merely tired. But deep down, she knew it was more than just fatigue. And Uncle Tan, in his room across the hallway, was also wide awake. Mei Ling's image, her soft voice, her light laughter, echoed in his mind, an impossible resonance he couldn't ignore. Thus, the days unfolded, with Mei Ling's unwavering care for Uncle Tan and his increasing dependence on her, not just for medicine or meals, but for her solace, her undeniable human warmth. What neither of them realized was that this nascent bond, born of necessity and deep gratitude, would soon transmute into something far more intricate and perilous. Their HDB flat in Pasir Ris had transformed into its own secluded universe, where the days revolved around Uncle Tan's needs and Mei Ling's tireless devotion. The humid warmth of Singapore's summer was beginning to yield to the quieter, more temperate season, yet the air remained heavy, scented with the frangipani blossoms and the faint aroma of cooking from neighboring units. Mei Ling moved with a nearly sacred routine. At dawn, she prepared a strong kopio and warm congee for Uncle Tan. Then she tidied the flat, tended to their small potted herb garden on the balcony, and returned to his side to ensure he took his medicines. Each task was an act of profound devotion, but also a deliberate way to keep at bay the unsettling thoughts that had begun to plague her. Uncle Tan, confined to his bed, observed Mei Ling with a complex mix of gratitude and something else he dared not name. His fractured leg caused him less pain with each passing day, but the immobility frustrated him deeply. He, who had spent his entire life in motion, now relied on his daughter-in-law for the most fundamental tasks. Yet Mei Ling's presence was a soothing balm. Her laughter, her gentle gestures, the way she hummed as she scrubbed the dishes, all of it made him feel alive in a way he hadn't experienced in years. One morning, as Mei Ling changed the bandages on his leg, Uncle Tan broke the silence. Mei Ling, don't you get tired of all this? Running around from one thing to the next. But you make this place feel brighter. Mei Ling felt a blush creep up her cheeks and lowered her gaze, concentrating on adjusting the bandage. Come on, Uncle Tan. Don't say such things. You're making me flustered. Flustered you? You're a whirlwind, he countered with a playful twinkle in his eyes, but then his tone softened. Seriously, Mei Ling, I don't know what I would have done without you. You're an angel. She didn't respond, merely finished bandaging his leg and rose to carry the basin to the sink. But Uncle Tan's words lingered in the air like an unforgettable melody. There was something in his voice, in the way he looked at her, that made her feel seen, truly valued, in a way she hadn't felt in a very long time. Jason, her husband, was a good man, but he was always so preoccupied, so distant, that sometimes Mei Ling felt like a mere shadow in her own life. That afternoon, as Mei Ling hung freshly laundered clothes on the drying rack in the service yard, Uncle Tan called her from the window. Mei Ling, come here for a moment. Bring me a glass of water, but stay a while. I'm tired of talking to the walls. She smiled and entered with the glass. She sat in the chair beside his bed, and soon the conversation flowed like a calm river. They spoke of everything and nothing, of community events, of past neighborhood gatherings, of Jason's playful mischief as a boy. Mei Ling laughed at Uncle Tan's stories, and he reveled in the sound of her laughter, which filled the room like a refreshing breeze. You know, I've never told you, but you have a laugh that lifts one's spirits, Uncle Tan said, resting his head on the pillow. It's as if sunshine itself has streamed through the window. Mei Ling blushed again, fidgeting with the edge of her apron. Oh, Uncle Tan, please don't start with your compliments. You'll make me believe I'm a movie star. And why not? You're prettier than many of those actresses, he countered, half joking, half serious. His eyes lingered on her for an instant too long, and Mei Ling felt a distinct tingle on her skin, as if the air itself had become charged with electricity. You'll just make me turn crimson, she said, laughing to mask her nervousness. But as she rose to collect the empty glass, her fingers brushed Uncle Tan's when she handed it to him. It was a fleeting contact, barely a second, yet enough to plunge them both into a profound silence, as if the world had abruptly paused. That evening, Mei Ling prepared some fresh popia and brought it to his room. There was a time when I danced at the community center's block parties, you know? He reminisced, a spark of nostalgia in his eyes. I wasn't bad, mind you. The ladies would line up to ask me to dance. Mei Ling giggled, imagining him. I don't believe it. You dancing? Tell me more. Of course I danced. I even won a competition once at the Hari Raya celebrations with my Auntie Lim, peace be upon her. His voice softened as he mentioned his late wife, but there was no sadness, only deep affection. She truly knew how to move. She was a whirlwind, just like you. Mei Ling lowered her gaze, feeling a pang in her chest. She wasn't sure if it was from the mention of Auntie Lim or the comparison to herself. You must miss her terribly, she said softly. Uncle Tan nodded, staring into the middle distance. Every single day, but life goes on, doesn't it? And having you here makes it easier. His words were simple, yet there was an intensity in them that made Mei Ling shiver. She abruptly stood, claiming she needed to wash the dishes, but in truth, she needed to escape the room, to create distance between herself and the escalating sensation growing within her. As she scrubbed in the kitchen, cold water running over her hands, she couldn't stop thinking about Uncle Tan, his deep voice, the way his eyes seemed to seek her out even when he said nothing. The days that followed were a delicate dance. Mei Ling continued to care for Uncle Tan with the same unwavering dedication, but now an undercurrent flowed through every gesture, every conversation. When she helped him sit up, her hands lingered a little longer than necessary. When she brought him his food, her smiles became warmer, more intimately personal. And Uncle Tan, for his part, seemed to drink in every moment he spent with her, as if her presence was the sole anchor keeping him grounded. One evening, as Mei Ling helped him change his shirt, the sleeve snagged, and she had to lean closer to disentangle it. Their faces were mere inches apart, and for a suspended instant, the world narrowed to the sound of their breathing, the shared warmth of their bodies in such close proximity. Mei Ling felt an almost irresistible urge to lean in, to close the minuscule distance, but she quickly pulled back, murmuring an apology. "It's all right," Uncle Tan said, his voice deeper than usual, but his eyes conveyed something else entirely, and Mei Ling knew it. When she went to bed that night, Mei Ling stared at the ceiling. Now, however, every task was imbued with a closeness they both felt. Though they diligently avoided naming it, the nights stretched long, and their conversations deepened, as if time and shared solitude compelled them to open up to each other. On one such night, Mei Ling sat beside Uncle Tan's bed, a soft shawl draped over her legs to ward off the evening's damp chill. She read aloud from a book of classical Chinese poetry she had found in a drawer, her gentle voice filling the room. Uncle Tan listened, eyes half closed, but he wasn't truly absorbing the words. He was lost in the cadence of her voice, the subtle movement of her lips, the luminous sparkle in her eyes beneath the lamp's soft light. "Do you ever feel lonely here, in this HDB block, with Jason so far away?" Uncle Tan interrupted suddenly, his voice grave and deliberate. She slowly closed the book, as if needing time to process the weight of his question. Her fingers idly traced the edge of the shawl. "Sometimes, I admit," she confessed, gazing towards the window. "It's not that I don't love Jason, but being here day after day, the flat, the little garden, the neighborhood, sometimes I feel a little lost." Uncle Tan nodded, as if he understood her sentiments precisely. "Loneliness is a peculiar thing, you know. It gnaws at you from within, but sometimes it also makes you see things you never noticed before. Like how truly kind you are, Mei Ling. How remarkably strong." She smiled, though a hint of sadness lingered in her gaze. "I don't feel so strong. I just do what needs to be done." "No, it's not just that," Uncle Tan insisted, propping himself up slightly in bed. His eyes sought hers with an intensity that made her shiver. "You do more than that. You make me feel alive, as if I still have something to offer, even trapped here in this bed." Mei Ling felt a sudden knot in her stomach. Uncle Tan's words mirrored precisely what she herself had been feeling, but dared not voice. "You make me feel that way too," she confessed, almost a whisper. "As if someone truly sees me." The silence that followed was dense, charged with an undeniable electricity that neither could ignore. Mei Ling rose to adjust Uncle Tan's blanket, a gesture that had become routine, but this time her hands trembled almost imperceptibly. As her arm brushed his, he gently captured her hand, not with force, but with a tenderness that disarmed her completely. "Mei Ling," his voice was barely audible. Mei Ling felt an overwhelming urge to lean closer, to let her lips find his, but the crushing weight of guilt arrested her. She gently pulled away, taking a step back, forcing a strained smile. "You should rest," her voice quivered. "It's late." Uncle Tan nodded, but his eyes never left her face. "You're right. But thank you, Mei Ling, for everything." She left the room, her heart racing, each step feeling like a desperate struggle against something potent growing within her. In the kitchen, she leaned against the sink, breathing deeply. What am I doing? This was wrong. She was Jason's wife, Uncle Tan's daughter-in-law. Yet she couldn't deny the warmth that bloomed whenever she was with him. The way their conversations filled a void she hadn't even known existed. The ensuing days were a delicate dance of advance and retreat. Mei Ling continued to care for Uncle Tan, but now an palpable tension imbued every touch, every shared glance. One afternoon, as she helped him stand to stretch his leg, their bodies came perilously close. She felt the warmth of his chest, the scent of soap and damp earth that always seemed to cling to him. For an instant, their eyes locked, and Mei Ling felt the world stand still. But she quickly pulled away, murmuring an excuse about the herb garden. Uncle Tan, for his part, was also engaged in a profound internal battle. He knew his feelings were wrong, that Mei Ling was his son's wife. Yet he couldn't help himself. Each time she entered the room, his heart quickened. Each time she laughed, he felt a spark of youth he thought he had long lost. And in the long nights, when insomnia held him captive, his mind was flooded with images of her loose hair, her soft hands, the gentle curve of her waist beneath the simple dress she often wore. One evening, as Mei Ling brought him a calming chrysanthemum tea, Uncle Tan decided to open up a little more. "Mei Ling, can I tell you something? Something I haven't told anyone else." She sat down, intrigued. "Of course, Uncle Tan. What is it?" He took a deep breath, gazing at the ceiling as if searching for the right words there. "When Auntie Lim passed, I truly believed my life was over. Not just because I loved her, but because I was utterly alone. Jason was already grown, building his own life, and I felt utterly adrift." Uncle Tan extended his hand, touching Mei Ling's, this time with greater intent. "We're not doing anything wrong, Mei Ling. We're just talking." She nodded, but her heart pulsed with a different truth. She knew these conversations, these fleeting touches, these moments of profound closeness, were crossing an invisible line, and yet she couldn't bring herself to stop. It was as if Uncle Tan filled a space in her soul that had been vacant for far too long. Last night, when Mei Ling finally drifted to sleep, she dreamt of him. In her dream, they were in the community garden beneath the shade of a rain tree, and he took her hand, his skin warm against hers. There was no guilt, only a profound sense of peace that enveloped her like a comforting blanket. But upon waking, reality slammed into her. This was no dream. It was something real and perilous. Have you ever felt an unexpected connection with someone that made you question your own boundaries? How did you navigate those complex feelings? The mornings in Pasir Ris now carried a crisp, cooler air, with the monsoon season settling over the island. The frangipani trees seemed to whisper under the gentle breeze. Yet within the HDB flat, the atmosphere was thick with a palpable tension that both Mei Ling and Uncle Tan felt in every corner. The routine persisted. Mei Ling prepared breakfast, tended to the balcony garden, changed Uncle Tan's bandages, and brought him his medicines. But every gesture, every spoken word, was tinged with a warmth that they both recognized, even as they resisted admitting it aloud. Mei Ling noticed her feelings intensifying. Whenever she entered Uncle Tan's room, her heart quickened, and she couldn't help but notice the small details. The way his shirt fit his broad shoulders, the spark in his eyes when he smiled, the rough yet comforting brush of his hands. It was as if his presence filled a void that Jason, with his constant absence, had allowed to grow. But with this burgeoning attraction came an overwhelming guilt, a crushing weight that pressed down on her each night as she lay alone in her bed. Uncle Tan, for his part, was also caught in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Each time Mei Ling entered, he felt a bewildering mix of joy and torment. He knew his feelings were wrong, that she was his son's wife, yet he found himself utterly unable to prevent them. He watched her move about the flat in her simple dress, which subtly accentuated the curves of her body, and his mind filled with thoughts that brought him immense shame. He tried to distract himself, to talk of mundane, everyday things, but their conversations invariably drifted to deeper, more personal subjects. One afternoon, as Mei Ling helped him stretch his leg to prevent stiffness, the proximity between them became almost unbearable. She was kneeling beside him. "Do you ever think about what could have been?" he asked, his voice low. If things were different, I mean. She paused, her hand still on his leg, and looked at him. Her eyes were a maelstrom of emotions. Different? How? She asked, though she knew precisely what he was implying. I don't know, he lied, averting his gaze. Just sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd met you sooner, in another lifetime. Mei Ling felt a sudden warmth flood her chest. Don't say that, Uncle Tan, she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. We are what we are. You are my father-in-law, and I am married to Jason. I know, he said quickly, as if wishing to erase his words. But his eyes conveyed a different message, and Mei Ling perceived it. There was an intensity in his gaze that made her feel exposed, vulnerable, yet also desired in a way that thrilled her to her core. That night, after dinner, Mei Ling stayed in Uncle Tan's room longer than usual. They were reminiscing about old times, about neighborhood events, when he recounted a story about a dance where he had accidentally spilled a drink on Auntie Lim. Mei Ling laughed so heartily that she had to clutch her stomach, and Uncle Tan looked at her with a tenderness that utterly disarmed her. Your laugh is like music, Mei Ling, he said without thinking. I never tire of hearing it. She blushed, fiddling with the edge of her apron. Oh, Uncle Tan, please don't start with your compliments. You're making me nervous. Nervous because of an old man like me? He teased, but his tone was soft, almost intimate. He extended his hand and brushed hers, a gesture that had become familiar, but this time felt profoundly different. Their fingers intertwined, and neither of them pulled away. The silence that followed was dense, charged with an energy that drew them together like powerful magnets. Mei Ling felt an overpowering urge to lean towards him, to let her lips find his. She could almost imagine it. The rough brush of his stubble, the warmth of his mouth, the strength of his hands drawing her closer. But the image of Jason suddenly flashed into her mind, and she recoiled abruptly, releasing his hand as if it had burned her. I'm sorry, she murmured, rising. I shouldn't. This isn't right. Uncle Tan looked at her, his face etched with profound conflict. Mei Ling, I didn't mean to. I don't know what's happening to me. You're the best thing I have right now, and I just want to be close to you. He needed her not just as a caregiver, but as something more, something that made him feel young, alive, human. But guilt gnawed at him. He was Jason's father, and Mei Ling was his daughter-in-law. How had it come to this? The following days were a silent torture. Mei Ling continued to care for Uncle Tan, but now an invisible barrier stood between them. They avoided physical contact, avoided prolonged gazes, yet the tension remained, growing more intense with each passing day. One morning, as Mei Ling brought him his breakfast, Uncle Tan broke the silence. Mei Ling, are you angry with me? He asked, his tone a mix of fear and fragile hope. I'm not angry, she replied, not looking at him. I just don't know how to handle this. What we feel isn't fair to Jason, nor to us. You're right, he said with a sigh, but I can't help it. Every time you walk through that door, I feel like the world makes sense again. Mei Ling closed her eyes, fighting back tears. Don't say that, please. This is difficult enough already. But despite her words, she couldn't deny what she felt. Every time she was near Uncle Tan, her body reacted. A tingling on her skin, a knot in her stomach, a desire that shamed her. And with every glance, every kind word, he fueled that fire they both desperately tried to extinguish. One night, as Mei Ling helped him change his shirt, their proximity once again betrayed them. Their hands brushed, and this time, neither pulled away. Their faces were so close they could feel each other's breath. Mei Ling trembled, torn between desire and profound guilt. Uncle Tan raised a hand and gently brushed her cheek with a tenderness that made her close her eyes. Mei Ling, he whispered. Tell me to stop, and I will. But she said nothing. For an instant, she allowed herself to imagine what it would be like to surrender, to let their lips meet, to feel his body against hers. But then she recoiled, her heart pounding. We can't, she said, almost voiceless. We can't. She fled the room, leaving Uncle Tan alone with his torment. They both knew they stood on the brink of something dangerous, something that could destroy everything they held dear. But the heart does not always heed reason, and theirs continued to beat for each other. Yet, each time she entered Uncle Tan's room, she felt his gaze like a physical touch, warm and deeply disturbing. Uncle Tan, for his part, was torn. The profound gratitude he felt for Mei Ling had transmuted into something far deeper, far more perilous. Each night when he closed his eyes, he saw her face, her smile, the gentle curve of her waist beneath her simple dress. He knew it was wrong, a betrayal of his son, but his heart refused to obey. He tried to maintain distance, to speak only of trivial matters, but their conversations invariably drifted towards something more intimate, as if their souls sought to connect despite their conscious efforts. One morning, as Mei Ling brought him breakfast, Uncle Tan broke the silence with a question that had been circling in his mind for days. Mei Ling, are you happy with Jason? Is this life what you truly wanted? She froze, the tray still in her hands. No one had asked her that question in a very long time, and the truth struck her with the force of a punch. I don't know, she admitted, slowly sitting in the chair beside his bed. I truly love Jason, but sometimes I feel like something is missing. I don't know how to explain it. Uncle Tan looked at her with a profound mixture of tenderness and pain. I understand. I felt that too after losing Auntie Lim, as if life was just a routine without any sparkle until you arrived. Mei Ling lowered her gaze, feeling a knot tighten in her chest. Don't say that, Uncle Tan. What we feel, it's wrong. We're family. I know, he responded, his voice breaking. Believe me, I know. But I can't help it. When you're here, I feel like I'm truly living again, and I hate myself for it, because I know I shouldn't. The silence that followed was heavy, as if the weight of their words filled the entire room. Mei Ling wanted to rise, to break the moment, but something held her there, ensnared by Uncle Tan's gaze. His eyes were a maelstrom of emotions, desire, guilt, yearning, and she knew her own reflected the same. That afternoon, as Mei Ling helped him change his bandages, the tension erupted once more. Their hands brushed, and this time, the contact was like a spark. Uncle Tan captured her hand, not with force, but with a softness that made her tremble. Mei Ling, he whispered, tell me you don't feel the same way I do. Tell me and I swear I'll stop. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, her eyes filled with tears, and her hand remained in his, trembling. I don't know what I feel, she confessed, her voice fractured, the world disappearing until only the two of them remained. But the image of Jason suddenly burst into her mind, and she recoiled abruptly, her heart pounding. We can't, Uncle Tan, she said, almost breathless. We can't do this. I know, he replied, letting go of her hand. But I don't know how to stop loving you. Those words pierced Mei Ling like a knife. She fled the room, tears streaming down her face, rushing to the kitchen to seek refuge in routine. As she scrubbed the dishes, the cold water could not extinguish the fire burning within her. She knew she stood on the precipice of something irreversible, and the idea terrified her. Yet it also drew her in like a mesmerizing flame she couldn't tear her eyes from. The following days were pure torment. Mei Ling tried to keep herself busy, to spend less time in Uncle Tan's room. But each time she saw him, she felt her resistance crumble. He, for his part, also struggled. He tried to speak only of practical matters, but his eyes always sought hers, and his hands trembled when she was near. One night, as Mei Ling brought him a herbal infusion, Uncle Tan decided to be completely honest. "Mei Ling, I don't know how much longer I can go on like this," he said, his voice laden with frustration. "Every day that passes, I feel myself sinking deeper into this, into you. And I know it's wrong, but I can't help it." She stood beside the bed, the trembling cup in her hands. "I feel it too," she admitted, almost a whisper. "But if we continue like this, we're going to destroy everything. Jason, our family. I can't live with that. Then what do we do?" he asked with a desperation he rarely displayed. "Because I don't know how to look at you without wanting to be closer, without wanting to touch you." Mei Ling felt a shiver run down her spine. The image of his hands on her, of his body against hers, was too vivid. But she shook her head, trying desperately to cling to reason. "I don't know, Uncle Tan. I just know we have to stop before it's too late." But that night, when Mei Ling finally went to sleep, she couldn't help but touch her lips, imagining what it would be like to kiss him. Her body burned with a desire that shamed her, and guilt followed her like an inescapable shadow. Uncle Tan, in his room, was also lost in his thoughts, imagining what he should never imagine. The weight of Mei Ling in his arms, the taste of her skin, the warmth of her closeness, regardless of the consequences. Both were caught in a consuming conflict. They yearned to stop, but each day presented a tougher test. Mei Ling wondered how much longer she could resist before surrendering to her feelings. Uncle Tan, for his part, knew that every moment with her was another step towards disaster. Yet he couldn't relinquish the spark she had ignited within him. "Do you believe it's possible to control feelings when they are so intense? Or do they always win out, regardless of the consequences?" What would you do in Mei Ling's or Uncle Tan's shoes? The monsoon chill deepened in Pasir Ris, and the nights in the HDB flat seemed longer, laden with a silence that weighed like a heavy slab. Mei Ling and Uncle Tan lived in a fragile equilibrium, trapped between desire and guilt, trying to maintain distance but unable to ignore the connection that bound them. Each day was a silent struggle, filled with stolen glances and accidental brushes that ignited impossible to quench sparks. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. One afternoon, as Mei Ling collected laundry from the drying rack under a sky heavy with looming monsoon clouds, she heard the distinct whirring of a delivery e-scooter on the path below. Her heart lurched. It was Jason. He had returned from Tuas without warning, his face tired but illuminated by the joy of coming home. Mei Ling dropped the bedsheet she was holding and ran towards him, throwing herself into his arms. "Jason, why didn't you tell me you were coming?" she exclaimed, hugging him tightly. The familiar scent of humidity and construction dust clung to him, bringing a pang of relief, but also a surge of fear. "I wanted to surprise you," he said, smiling as he stroked her hair. "I've missed you, Mei Ling. How is everything here? And my father?" Mei Ling felt a knot in her stomach. "He's better, but still in bed. His leg is taking its time to heal. Come on in, I'll prepare you something to eat." Jason nodded and followed her inside, leaving his travel bag by the entrance. The flat smelled of fragrant chicken curry, and Mei Ling clung to the routine to calm her frayed nerves. But when Jason entered Uncle Tan's room, the atmosphere shifted perceptibly. Uncle Tan was seated in bed with a book in his hands, but his face lit up at the sight of his son. "Son, at last!" Uncle Tan exclaimed, extending his arms. "I thought you'd forgotten about this, old man." Jason laughed and hugged him carefully. "Never, Dad. How are you? Mei Ling tells me you're still giving everyone a hard time." Jason regaled them with tales of the towering structures he had helped build, of the colleagues he had met. Mei Ling nodded, smiling, but her mind was elsewhere. Uncle Tan ate in silence, casting glances at her from time to time that she desperately tried to ignore. But Jason, exhausted from his journey, noticed nothing amiss, or so Mei Ling thought. The next day, as Mei Ling helped Uncle Tan sit up to eat, Jason entered the room without warning. Mei Ling was adjusting Uncle Tan's pillow, and their hands brushed for an instant. It was nothing out of the ordinary, but something in the way they looked at each other, in the pregnant pause that followed, made Jason stop dead in the doorway. His eyes narrowed, and his smile vanished. "What's going on here?" he asked, his tone a mix of confusion and chilling suspicion. Mei Ling immediately pulled away, her heart accelerating. "Nothing, Jason. I'm just helping him with his pillow." Her voice trembled. Uncle Tan tried to lighten the moment with a joke. "Relax, son. Your wife takes excellent care of me. She won't even let me move on my own." But Jason did not laugh. His eyes flickered from Mei Ling to Uncle Tan, and then back to her. "I see," he said with a coldness Mei Ling had never heard from him before. "I'm going for some heavy storage. We'll talk later." He left the room, and Mei Ling felt the air leave her lungs. Uncle Tan looked at her, his face etched with profound worry. "Mei Ling, don't tell him anything. He doesn't need to know whatever this is." "And what is it, Uncle Tan?" she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "Because I no longer know." That night, the tension in the flat was unbearable. Jason was quieter than usual, and Mei Ling felt his gaze on her, as if he were searching for something in her face. She tried to act normally, but every word, every gesture felt forced. Uncle Tan, confined to his bed, barely spoke, and when he did, he avoided looking directly at Mei Ling. Later, when Mei Ling and Jason retired to bed, he broke the suffocating silence. "Mei Ling, what is happening between you and my father?" His voice was low, but there was a hardness in it that made her shiver. "Nothing, Jason," she replied, perhaps too quickly. "I'm just taking care of him. He's your father, for goodness sake." "Don't lie to me," he said, turning to face her. His eyes were a maelstrom of pain. "We haven't crossed that line, I promise you." But Jason did not respond. He rose from the bed and left the room, leaving Mei Ling alone with her crushing guilt. In the next room, Uncle Tan heard the door slam and knew everything had changed. The family they had both tried so desperately to protect was on the brink of collapse, and he felt utterly responsible. The next day, Jason barely spoke. He spent the morning outside, rearranging heavy items and working in the shared garden, as if needing to keep busy to avoid thinking. Mei Ling, heartbroken, tried to speak with him, but he evaded her. Uncle Tan, from his bed, felt the weight of his actions crushing him. When Mei Ling entered to bring him lunch, he couldn't hold back. "Mei Ling, this is my fault," he said, his voice broken. "I should never have let this go so far. I'll talk to Jason. I'll explain." "No," she interrupted him, tears in her eyes. "Don't do anything. This is my responsibility. I'm the one who has to fix this." But they both knew it wouldn't be easy. The truth had emerged, and now the family hung by a thread. Mei Ling felt trapped between her love for Jason and the undeniable connection that had grown with Uncle Tan, and he, for his part, knew that his weakness had jeopardized everything he held most dear. The monsoon chill settled deeper into Pasir Ris, and the HDB flat seemed more silent than ever, as if holding its breath against the whirlwind that had erupted. Jason's arrival had shattered the fragile equilibrium between Mei Ling and Uncle Tan, and now the family teetered on the brink of an abyss. Mei Ling barely slept, consumed by guilt and the terrifying fear of losing everything. Uncle Tan, trapped in his bed, wrestled with shame and the desperate desire to protect his loved ones. And Jason, wounded by what he had witnessed and felt, moved through the flat like a stranger, his face hardened, his voice cutting. The morning after the confrontation, Mei Ling decided she could no longer evade the truth. As she prepared copio, her hands trembling, she made a resolute decision. She would speak with Jason, even if it cost her everything. She found him in the service yard, rearranging heavy items with a furious energy that made the air thrum. Each clang of metal resonated like an echo of his profound pain. "Jason, please, we have to talk," Mei Ling said, approaching cautiously. The wind whipped her hair, and her eyes were red from crying. He set down the power tools, but did not look at her. "Talk? What more is there to say, Mei Ling? You've already said enough." "No, it's not enough," she cried, her eyes filled with pain. "Why, Mei Ling? Why my father? What did he give you that I didn't?" Mei Ling felt tears stream down her cheeks. "It's not that he gave me something, Jason. It's that I've been lonely. You're always away working, and I truly understand that. But here, caring for your father, I've felt seen, heard. It's not love, not like what I feel for you. It's something different, something I can't explain." Jason remained silent, staring at the ground. Then, his voice broken, he said, "I don't know if I can forgive this, Mei Ling. I don't know if I can look at both of you and not feel like you've betrayed me." Those words were like a dagger. But Mei Ling nodded. "I understand. But I swear I don't want to lose you. I'll do anything to fix this." That same afternoon, Mei Ling entered Uncle Tan's room, determined to quell the storm that had engulfed them. He was sitting in bed, his face haggard, as if he hadn't slept in days. When he saw her, his eyes filled with a mixture of relief and fear. "Mei Ling, how is Jason?" he asked, his voice trembling. "I haven't been able to sleep thinking about what we've done to him." "He's shattered," she replied, sitting in the chair beside the bed. "And so am I. This has to stop, Uncle Tan. We can't continue like this. For Jason, for our family." Uncle Tan nodded, his eyes moist. "You're right. I've been selfish, weak. I should never have let this go so far. But Mei Ling, I want you to know something. What I feel for you isn't just a fleeting fancy. You've given me back my life. You've made me feel that I still have worth. And for that, I will always be grateful." Mei Ling felt a knot in her throat. "I care for you too, Uncle Tan, but not in the way you think. It's a special affection. But it's not love. Not like the love I feel for Jason. And we can't let this destroy what we have." Uncle Tan extended his hand, but this time there was nothing but profound gratitude in his gesture. Mei Ling took it, and for a moment, they looked at each other like two people who had shared something deep, but who knew they had to let it go. That night, Mei Ling and Uncle Tan spoke with Jason together. It was a painful conversation, filled with tears and uncomfortable truths. Uncle Tan spoke first, his voice firm despite his physical fragility. "Son, I have failed as a father," he said, looking directly into Jason's eyes. "I've made a mistake by allowing my feelings to become confused, but I have never stopped loving you. If you give me a chance, I will prove to you that this family comes first for me." The silence that followed was agonizing. Jason stood up and left the room, leaving Mei Ling and Uncle Tan with their hearts in their throats. But the next day, something shifted. Jason entered the kitchen while Mei Ling prepared breakfast, and without a word, he embraced her from behind. She turned, surprised, and saw a spark of hope in his eyes. "I don't know if I can forget everything," he said softly. "But I love you, Mei Ling, and I want to try, for us, for our family." Mei Ling wept with relief, hugging him tightly. "Thank you, Jason. You won't regret it, I promise you." The following days were a slow process of healing. Uncle Tan began to walk with crutches, and although he still depended on Mei Ling for some things, the dynamic between them changed. Their glances were no longer charged, their touches were careful, and their conversations reverted to those of a father-in-law and daughter-in-law. Jason, though still wounded, began to open up again, spending more time at home and helping with chores. In time, Uncle Tan fully recovered, and the flat once again filled with laughter and warmth. The family had passed through fire, but emerged stronger. Mei Ling learned to cherish what she had with Jason, and he made an effort to be more present. Uncle Tan, for his part, found peace in knowing that his weakness had not destroyed what he loved most. Life lesson. The story of Mei Ling, Uncle Tan, and Jason teaches us that love and feelings can be complex and confusing, but honesty and commitment to family can overcome even the most painful mistakes. It reminds us that we are all human, prone to error, but also capable of forgiveness and rebuilding. Question for the audience. What would you do to rebuild trust in a relationship after a situation like Mei Ling and Jason's? Do you believe forgiveness is always possible, or are there limits that cannot be crossed?